Hello, everybody, and welcome to this edition of the God Squad Pod, where we try to make sense of faith politics and bring a little sanity to it, which is increasingly difficult with this fascist kakistocracy of corrupt, absolute idiots running things in D.C. I am joined by the amazing, the incomparable, the sniffly Desimber Rose, who has a little bit of cold tonight, but she's soldiering on. Hey D, how you doing?
Hey, I am here. Yes, I am soldiering on. I'm here. What's going on?
Aren't we all with the news coming at us seemingly faster than at any point in my lifetime? Today's big headline is something that will obscure yesterday's big headlines and so on and so forth. But today's big headline is that Pam Bondi is no longer the Attorney General of the United States. She got fired. I don't know if the Dow is still above 50,000 or not, but girl, bye.
Definitely should. Don't let the Dow hit you on the way out.
That's
Don't
right.
let
Don't
the Dow hit you where the good Lord split you.
Yeah, and it seems to me a couple of things that are going on here is one, she's supposed to testify under oath on April the 14th.
Yeah.
It's April the 2nd now, so that's less than 2 weeks away. So maybe this is strategic by the regime to try to skirt that because
I've been reading that she's still expected to show up, that subpoena is
That's
not really
right.
based on her still holding that job. She is expected to show up to answer those questions.
Congressman Garcia, who is on that committee, has already issued a statement saying you have to show up. That is the law. And I think it was Michael Popak on Legal AF who mentioned that Bill Barr had to come and testify under oath for his role as Attorney General after he was Attorney General. So, and I can't remember. Is it Kohana? Representative Kohana, is that right? I think he's from California. He was saying that there are Republicans on that committee who will not stand for her not showing up. But James Comer. Ro Khanna. That's what it is. Yeah, Ro Khanna.
There's Republicans that also want her to show up.
Yeah, but James Comer's not one of those Republicans that probably wants her to show up because, that guy is constantly on his knees licking Donald Trump's boots. So who knows? But the Epstein victims, some of them released a statement today and said that Pam Bondi had failed them.
And they also filed a class action too, earlier this week or late last week.
Is that the one against Les Wexner?
Where it's against the DOJ for the way that they released their names and stuff.
Oh, right. Where they didn't where they redacted the perpetrators, but released the victims' names.
Yes.
And what appears to be a very transparent attempt at intimidation.
Yes, because they did redact one name. When I'm assuming that one name is the lady that accused Trump.
Right.
And so remember that one list of all the victims, and they had one of the victims. I'm like, so somebody did go through that list and specifically did not redact all the other names?
Right.
Okay.
Yeah. Todd Blanche is now acting Attorney General, and he has apparently said that the Epstein review is now over.
Really?
That
with anywhere from 3 to 10 million files still not released, it's over?
Yeah, that'll come as a real shock to the members of Congress who passed the Epstein Transparency Act into, what's that word? Law. Law. So it seems like Trump is doing everything he can to continue to cover these things up, but apparently Pam Bondi was begging for her job. in a very dramatic scene at the White House. It's been reported in multiple places that she was begging not to be fired.
I
It's
can see
also
that. I
reported
can see
that
that. Because I mean, what do you even do after that? After you've made a fool of yourself in front of the whole world, the Dow is over 50. What do you even do with yourself after that? I mean, where are
yeah,
you
that's
going?
what we should be talking about. We should be talking about the fact that the Dow is over 50,000, and President Trump did that. President Trump is not in charge of the fucking Dow Jones, and guess what? The Dow Jones doesn't matter to millions and millions of people.
To most people.
I mean, the vast majority of the United States people in the United States do not invest in stocks or in things that are listed on the Dow Jones.
Not in a way that would impact their daily lives anyways. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
I have 401k or whatever, but I'm not watching the Dow. And I'm
right,
certainly not watching it over in such a way where I'm more concerned about that than justice
right.
for sex trafficking victims.
Yeah,
You know, so where does she even go from here after all that bullshit? You know, I don't even know what. Maybe she could become a Fox News correspondent. You know, they'll take just about anything over there that will lick Trump's behind.
yeah. She's one of those people who chooses to be awful on a daily basis, and so I don't have any sympathy for her, and hope that she is prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law for
For
her
lying under
role,
oath.
for lying under oath, for intentionally covering up the Epstein files. And as
Mhm.
President Truman said many decades ago, the buck stops here.
That's right.
And she was the top cop at the DOJ. So if there's shenanigans going on, that's on her.
It's on her.
Um, and Todd Blanche too. I want that. He's Trump's person. He used to be Trump's personal attorney. What planet are we living on where that's even remotely copacetic and not a conflict of interest? Um, yeah, I want to see him because he's the one behind moving Ghislaine Maxwell to Club Fed in Texas,
And
where she's
he's no
getting
one, and he's no one's still giving any kind of explanation for why they act like everyone acts like they don't know why. I don't
yeah.
know why
Everybody
that. I
knows
don't know.
why, but they're acting like they don't know why. But we all know why. They're trying to keep her quiet. Um, yeah, it's fucking
Yes,
ridiculous. Something that might have flown under a lot of people's radar because of everything is that Trump is trying to dismantle the Forestry Service.
for what?
I haven't had a chance to look this week, but I bet that that's in Project 2025, because they don't like anything that's conservation uh, related, and they want to be able to extract and profit from resources, and they don't like
Mhm.
regulation and oversight. So I'm sure that it has something to do with that. They're trying to drill
Dismantle.
in the freaking Gulf of Mexico, where those endangered whales are, and trying to say that it's national security. It is not national security to kill whales, y'all.
They also tried to say it's national security to build that ballroom too. Did you see that? Because that has
Oh
been
yeah,
on hold
yeah.
for congressional approval, which he should have gone through the right process to begin with. Although I'm not holding my breath that anything is going to happen besides him continuing to build it. You know, they don't care about these court rulings and things.
I don't know. I don't know. That I mean, he just had some contractor company come in with giant excavators and start knocking shit down without so much as a buy your fucking leave, which is completely illegal. All saying that the Trump administration is doing illegal things is like saying the sky is blue. Um,
Pretty
it
much.
just it's just
What do you think
that.
about this crazy story about Christy Noem's husband? You know what? These people better be glad that the news cycle is so rapid
Mm-hmm.
because any one of this stuff would have been like breaking news for a week, would have been like top of the line. But these days, this stuff comes and goes so fast They are beneficiaries of a breakneck breaking news cycle because otherwise this stuff will be front page for days. What do you think about this? What is called bimbification? I've never even heard of this term.
This is a kink that I had not heard of. I mean, I'm not part of the kink / fetish community, so I don't really know, and I'm not here to kink shame anybody. But the hypocrisy, I will definitely point out, and the idea that Christy Nome didn't know, that dog won't hunt. No, because she's been openly carrying on an affair with Corey Lewandowski forever. Like, this is an open secret. It's been reported on for years and years and years. So my hypothesis, and this is just my hypothesis and opinion, is that her husband was like, yo, I'm going to do my thing over here with my big fake boobs and my, sex workers and fetish workers and whatnot. And I'm not going to complain about you and Corey doing whatever it is y'all do. That's my hypothesis.
You, boo.
Yeah, exactly. Like, we're going to stay married because it's politically expedient to be conservatives who stay married.
Yeah.
I also think that that's why Hillary and Bill are still married, but I digress. But yeah, the hypocrisy, because Nome is so anti-LGBTQ, and now her husband's dressing up in drag and all this stuff. And again, I don't give a fiddler's fart what consenting adults are doing in that kind of way.
Me neither.
I don't have a problem. Bad pun, Dillon. Elaine, I don't know which pun I made, but I don't appreciate being called out for it, Elaine.
Look, I'm like you. I'm not kink shaming nobody. I don't care. Beth says she definitely knew. Of course she knew. Ain't no way that you don't know that your husband is a cross dresser. Okay? Of course you know this man is blowing up balloons, sticking them in his shirt. There's a video that our friend April Joy did earlier this week.
That was funny.
I'm going to have to find it and play it. But of course you know. Of course you know. The thing is, I don't care what people are doing in their free time as long as it's not illegal and, harming others against their will or whatever the case.
Yeah.
Like you said, it's the hypocrisy. Because these same people will get on TV and speak so wickedly, negatively, demeaningly, derogatorily about the trans community, about the LGBTQ IA community, about drag queens at libraries, whatever. They'll get on their soapbox and go on and on and on and on and on and on. Meanwhile, back at the ranch, you somewhere in front of a camera with blow up titties and tights on.
Yeah.
Just be for real.
With values.
Just be so fucking for real with yourself. Keep it real with yourself.
Yeah. And the sanctity of marriage and all that stuff. Oh, yeah. Elaine says that dog won't hunt. That's actually a Southern expression, which is kind of like, that's some bullshit. That's what that means. It's not actually a pun. It's a idiomatic expression. But anyway, I digress. Yeah. You don't get to go on TV and talk or on the campaign trail and talk about family values and all of this stuff, and then carry on an affair with Corey Lewandowski for however many years.
You're carrying on an affair with Corey Lewandowski. Your husband's a cross-dresser, and we don't know what else, right?
Right.
And whatever he is, I'm not judging him.
Right. Yeah, I don't care about that.
It'd be the loudest ones. It'd be the loudest one. That's what gets me. It'd be the loudest ones, the ones that got so much to say that are always out their mouth with something that have the craziest crap going on behind closed doors.
That's why I wonder what Trump's got on Lindsey Graham.
For real.
Because, yeah, that's what I want to know. I can't wait to know these things. Like, my curiosity is insatiable. But the other news that broke today, just today, is that Pete Hegseth, that remarkably unqualified, idiotic, violence-worshiping jackass, fired the top guy in the army and wants to probably replace him with some sycophant for Trump. And did it have something to do with military helicopters flying by fucking Kid Rock's house in some performative stunt, which the Army was like, that's illegal. We're going to take care of that. And then Pete Hegseth said, no, you're not. Or did that general say, we're not doing that, that's illegal and that's a war crime? Or was it both? I mean, and what the actual fuck? You clowns start a war that you couldn't even remotely see any of the outcomes, because y'all are playing fucking Candyland and everybody else in the world is playing chess. Right. And now you're going to fire a guy with 40 years experience, and he's being fired by a former Fox News host who doesn't think germs are real?
Oh my gosh. Oh my God. And then on top of that, I don't know if you heard this too, that apparently they don't want to promote Black or female officers.
Right. Yep.
Did you see that? That they were taking them off the promotion roster because allegedly Trump doesn't want to stand next to them, or they don't want to promote them. Now, these people have earned their promotions. They have served faithfully this country, the government, for years. These are not DEI hires like they like to say. The DEI hires are all in Trump's cabinet right now. Okay? Yeah. These people have served their country, served the military, served all the nation faithfully, professionally, with honor and valor. And if you're a minority or if you're a woman, they don't want to promote you. They don't want to give you your stars, your bars, or whatever it is.
Yeah. And you know that's coming straight from the white nationalist patriarchal heart of these idiots. Pete Hegseth doesn't believe that women belong anywhere except in the kitchen. And Trump is a racist and has been a racist since the dawn of Trump. Like, this is not front page news as many times as people have tried to say, I never heard Trump say anything racist. My dude, if you don't hear him saying racist stuff, it's because you don't hear yourself saying racist stuff.
Thank you.
Or doing racist stuff and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, I mean, how many highly qualified people has Hegseth already fired? So many in just a year plus that he's been in there. And again, that dude has no more qualifications to run the Department of Defense than I do. Just because I was in the military does not make me an expert on all things foreign policy and all that shit.
It doesn't. It's just like them. Here's the thing too about this whole the DEI, the woke, the this and that, this, that, and the other bullshit. They just put a guy who has an associate's degree and a history and his only career before this one is a plumber over the Department of Homeland Security.
Yeah. And his associate's degree is in construction.
Is a DEI hire. They want to say that Vice President Kamala Harris was a DEI hire. Anybody that's a minority or a woman is a DEI hire. But these motherfuckers can be, they can just have a high school diploma and know how to fix some plumbing, and they could just be a host on Fox. They could just be a nighttime host on Fox News, and they're qualified to do whatever. They could just be a friend of Donald Trump. They could just be his insurance attorney, and then they're qualified to be the attorney general or whatever the hell. What's her name was? That
Lena Haba.
Yeah.
Yeah, she was supposed to be a district judge in New Jersey or whatever, but
I don't know what the hell, just whatever. But everybody else is a DEI hire. No, you all are the didn't earn it crew.
You're dadgum right. Yeah, and Mark Wayne Mullen, the former secretary or senator from Oklahoma, who's now the head of Department of Homeland Security, his degree is in construction studies, and I'm not throwing shade at that. I have a tech school certificate myself, along with my master's degree.
But let's see if you get appointed to run the Department of Homeland Security with that. Let's see.
Yeah.
Let's see if I can get it.
Exactly. And I call him Little Plumber Boy because he's about 5'3" or something, and he likes to talk a big game. But he's dumber than a box of hammers. But he's a sycophant for Trump.
And that's really all you need.
And he's the guy that that picture that goes around hiding behind a chair on January 6th. But then he goes off talking about how he'll stand there, with his rifle and on the front lines. He was never in the military, but he likes to talk like he would be or had been or whatever. And he wasn't, and he's not qualified, but he's a sycophant for Trump. And that's why this whole thing is a kakistocracy. And that is the rule by the least qualified, the most stupid people in society. And that's what we've got going on here. And now we've got a guy who's clearly not all there mentally anymore because of dementia. And he's 79 years old. And he's a racist and adjudicated as a rapist and credibly accused of all kinds of heinous things in the Epstein files, including sexually assaulting a 13-year-old girl.
Yeah.
These are things that are in the Epstein files, y'all. So this is where we are as a country. And then we have people like Paula White Cain with the most egregious case of false equivalence I've ever seen in my life.
You know what? And I got a video. I want to show that real quick, and then I know we're running out of time. We got to get to your question for your one of our listeners. I want to show this real quick because this is it's fucking crazy.
Right.
But this is what we're doing.
Is this Paula White?
Yeah, via our good friend April or Joy. Check this shit out.
I honestly thought that with the year Trump has had and his plummeting approval ratings, that MAGA Christians would stop comparing him to Jesus, but I was wrong.
Jesus taught us so many lessons through his death, burial, and resurrection. He showed us great leadership, great transformation required sacrifice. No one paid the price.
I can't hear her.
You can't hear her?
No, I can't hear her.
Okay, I'll find another one for her. But she's saying no. She's basically comparing Trump to Jesus. That he
saying he was falsely accused and arrested and all of these things, but God is going to use him, and that's why I say it's the most egregious false equivalence fallacy I've ever seen in my life. And the fact that Christians are going. Robert Jeffers was right behind him. That's the pastor of First Baptist Dallas, that big Christo-fascist church in Dallas. There was apparently a bishop there that was clapping during that whole thing. And of course, Paula White Cain is a grifter of grifters, standing there in her dress that probably cost thousands and thousands of dollars, talking about a man who said to give up all your damn wealth. I just can't with these fucking people anymore. I'm starting to have bad thoughts, y'all. Like, I can't wait till the day that it happens kind of thoughts, which I don't like having. But Desimber alluded to something. Normally, when we don't have a guest, I do a segment called Fundamentalist Fuckwittery, but we've also at times said, hey, look, stump the squad, ask questions, and that kind of thing. And I got a list of questions in multiple paragraphs from somebody I know, and there have been entire libraries worth of books written about the questions that she asked. And so I'm going to try to answer some some. I'm not going to be able to even remotely get to everything. But one of the ones that she asked is, what sources am I drawing from? Because these are theological questions. So I want to start from there, and then I'll kind of work my way towards the other thing. When I am looking at theological questions, my sources are going to be reputable biblical scholars who are not evangelical, because evangelicals are apologists. They don't have a non-critical eye when it comes to the biblical text. So, biblical scholars like Dr. Greg Carey, who we've had on here, Bart Ehrman, Dan McClellan, etc. Dr. Julia O'Brien, one of my seminary professors. And for biblical text, I am always going to use the New Revised Standard Version of the Bible, or the New Revised Standard Version Updated Edition of the Bible. And the reason that I use that particular translation is that it is deemed by biblical scholars to be the most accurate translation available to us with the information that we have to compile a Bible. And so you will find people like Josh Howerton, who was a representative of fundamentalist fuckwittery on this show a month or so ago. He's a preacher from North Texas, not too far from where I'm from. And he says that the NRSV is garbage and should be thrown away. And why does he say that? Because it translates things accurately that openly contradict fundamentalist translations or evangelical translations. So that's where I'm starting from. I'm also starting from a place of I am a heterodox theologian. And what does that mean? It means I do not affirm the orthodox creeds of faith. I do not think that the available evidence supports the Nicene Creed or the Apostles' Creed. I think Jesus is really cool. I'm trying to figure out more about him. I have been thinking theologically according to one of my professors for my whole life, and all of those things. But theologian says what I do vocationally and absolutely nothing about what I believe. Because theology is the study of, not the taking on conclusions of a doctrinal standpoint. So that's where I'm coming from. The questions that were asked are huge questions. So I tried to synthesize them down to 4 or 5. And I'm not going to be able to get to all of them because we could be here. We could do hours and hours on this stuff. Did God choose and ordain that Jesus had to suffer and die for atonement? That's one of the questions. How should we understand Scripture? Is it all a metaphor, literal, etc.? Why does evil exist? Why not eliminate Satan or the source of that evil? And was humanity's fall inevitable? I'm going to start with the why does evil exist question. That is a question of theodicy. Theodicy tries to answer that question. Why does evil exist? Why does suffering happen? And there are 2 kinds of evil according to people who engage in theodicy. That is moral evil. King Leopold of Belgium committing genocide in the Congo. Hitler committing genocide against the Jews. Manifest Destiny perpetuating genocide against Native Americans. That kind of thing. The Epstein files. Moral evil, right? Then there's natural evil, and evil seems to be a weird term in this connotation, but a major earthquake, a tsunami, a hurricane, things where large numbers of people who are just minding their own damn business get hurt or killed because of a natural process, right? So why do these things happen? Why didn't God design a planet where tectonic plates don't exist and where the weather is always balanced and nice and good and all that kind of stuff? Or why does Hitler ever have to be a thing? When I took theodicy and studied theodicy in seminary, I left that class with the feeling of unfulfillment, because I couldn't find a suitable answer. And one of the things that I learned is that the Bible does not have an answer. It has multiple theories, but it does not give a definitive answer.
Mm-hmm.
In some places, it says that suffering builds character, like Paul did in Romans 3, that it's the nature of the universe, as it says in Job 38, 1 through 11, that sin is not the cause of suffering, and the Gospel of John, that nature itself has fallen, that's Genesis 3, that there should be joy in suffering, that's James. There's more. But the point is that the Bible is not consistent on suffering and evil, just like it's not consistent on a lot of things. So there's that. And for the understanding of Scripture, is it all a metaphor? No. The Bible is a collection of text, and some books have multiple genres within them. And so some things are not metaphorical. Some things are ostensibly historical. We do have some documents in the Bible where there are extra biblical sources, meaning sources outside of the Bible, that you can align these things and go, oh, that's when that happened. They mesh with the historical record, right? There's propaganda in the Bible, particularly in the Hebrew Bible, talking about the great things that kings did, and or the bad things that those kings over there did, and all that kind of stuff. So there's propaganda. There's erotic poetry in the Bible. We've talked about that on here, that most scholars think is about unwed lovers, right? So the Bible's not consistent on sex either, shockingly enough. So it's not all literal or metaphorical. And the reason that question was asked was because I mentioned that Genesis is, in the early parts, the primeval history, is origin myth for the Israelite people. And myth does not necessarily mean that it's a fake thing or that it's not true. It's trying to establish truth through stories. And so that leads to the question of, was the fall inevitable? It depends on the theologian that you listen to, but it presupposes an idea, in my mind, that the creation narrative is capital T true, that it actually happened that way. And the thing about that is that it's an Israelite origin myth, meaning it's their story. It's not necessarily the story for all of humanity, as mostly conservative Christians see it that way, right? They believe in a literal first Adam and first Eve and all that stuff. I do not. I was listening to Dr. Pete Enns, a biblical scholar at Eastern University, which is here in Pennsylvania today. And in his opinion, he said, look, Adam is an idealized version of Israel. It's not a literal single person, because in the Genesis narratives, you've got other people. Cain went out from the presence of the Lord and dwelled in the land of Nod, because he was afraid people were going to kill him for killing his brother. Well, who are all these would-be murderers? If it's only Adam and Eve and Cain and Abel, ain't nobody going to kill him. So there had to be other people around, right?
And who did he find to marry?
Right, yeah. And we did a play when I was in high school called Inherit the Wind, and that was about the Scopes Monkey trial. And one of the lawyers was like, where did those people come from? Like, who are they? Because
well, the scriptures does say male and female, he created them.
Exactly.
A lot of people skip over that part.
Right.
And he created them
simultaneously in Genesis 1.
There's a lot to unpack there. If the creation story is what you believe, you have to establish the premise of that's the premise.
Yeah. So was the fall inevitable? In some ways, I'd say yes, because human beings are human beings. We are human. We're bound to be fallible, etc. Irenaeus, One of the early theologians said, of course, it was inevitable. We're like little children who don't know any better. And so clearly that's going to happen, right? And that idea that we're sinful by nature, or that we're going to do things that let us down, that let ourselves down, let others down, harm others, etc., it is pretty ubiquitous. But one thing that I lean towards more now is kind of this process theology view that does not have God being omnipotent and omniscient, but rather a non-coercive God who can understand or know all of the potential things that might happen without being a puppet master, and giving free will to the creation, and then drawing all things through non-coercive means, luring towards more love, more diversity, more community, etc. And in that view of why does evil and suffering happen, it's because we have free will, and we don't always listen to that sort of whisper from God, etc. And we're fallible, and evil does exist because in the system that God created, that is a potential. But it's not like saying God is culpable for the evil. It's just it's just a natural result of things being created. Now, it's Holy Week. I'm going to show a couple of videos here. One is of Bart Ehrman. Bart Ehrman is a recently retired biblical scholar. He is one of the most well-known biblical scholars in the country. His area of expertise is textual criticism of the New Testament, and incredibly well-known and respected. And he is going to talk about forgiveness versus atonement and the difference thereof, which sometimes they get conflated. So, and then I'm going to show a video of Reverend Mark Sandlin, who's talking about Holy Week and suffering. And I know that this is not going to answer all the questions, because the place that these questions came from, and so many people who are asking these questions are coming from that evangelical place or that Catholic place where certitude is the thing. We are certain this is how it is. And that doesn't stand up to scrutiny. Because if God was omnipotent, all powerful, and still allows Epstein to run amok, then God is choosing to allow that to happen. And that's some bullshit. Right? So the Calvinistic sovereign God who's a divine puppet master doesn't stand up to scrutiny. That's why there are a lot of people who are atheists, because of this question of why suffering and evil happen. Because of the idea that God is omnipotent and omniscient.
So why would he allow it? Yeah. A lot of people have a faith fracture.
Yep.
That causes them to walk away from God because they aren't able to reconcile this question.
Right. And just before I get to the video, the Bible was written by people in particular social context over a long period of time, trying to understand God in a world where life was cheap and death was right around the corner, or was just around the corner all the time. You could stub your toe and get an infection in your toenail and be dead in a week.
They were under the oppression of the Romans too.
Yeah, under the oppression of the Romans. The Israelites were constantly being bombarded because of the geographic location of the Levant of Palestine between bigger empires. And they're trying to make sense of all this. And so we have to keep that in mind when we read the text, the different biblical text. Each text has to speak for itself. Each writer has to speak for itself. There's multi-source hypothesis for the Pentateuch. You can find the sources in there. I've done it in seminary. Isaiah has at least 3 different authors, etc. So keep all of that in mind. The Bible's not univocal, and so it can't answer all of these questions all the time. But here's Dr. Ehrman and his co-host, Megan Lewis, talking particularly about the question of, did Jesus have to suffer?
Instead of demanding some kind of atonement.
This is a really big theological problem. Why does God require his son to die? That's what the Christian tradition says. And it doesn't seem to be what Jesus taught. Jesus taught that God didn't require a payment. You get forgiveness. And when you think about it theologically, it's a very troubling idea that God requires a payment. I mean, when my child does something that's wrong, I don't require some kind of sacrifice in order to make up for it. I heard a speaker at a conference one time say, that if his daughter like did something that she knew she wasn't supposed to do, he doesn't say, well, I'm glad you said that that you realize you did it. Now I'm going to have to kill your little kitten Tommy to make up for your sin. And so you have to go out and kill the cat. What? Why? Why don't you just forgive them? And so that's a theological issue. Why can't God just forgive? And, the common answer for that is because God had to have justice. He had to have a sacrifice. Well, who made that the necessity? In other words, is there some power greater than God that is requiring him to do something in order to forgive sins? Isn't he the one who makes the rules? And so to say, well, he had to do it I think that's wrong. I mean, he didn't have to do it if he's God. I mean, if he's God, he doesn't have to do that. And so theologically, it creates such a huge problem that theologians outside of evangelical Christians and fundamentalist Christians, or very conservative Catholics or conservative Greek Orthodox, I mean, like modern theologians who are teaching like at major divinity schools in the U.S., who are Protestant or Catholic, like really highly educated, philosophically astute theologians, find the doctrine of atonement the most difficult thing to figure out. And some of them just throw up their hands and say, look, it just doesn't make any sense to me, and that'll come as a surprise, of course, to many readers. But, the doctrine it's really problematic.
So if Jesus taught forgiveness unconditional, well, not unconditional, we've already talked about that, but forgiveness
yes.
without some kind of atonement, why does Christianity then teach a doctrine of atonement?
Yeah, why'd they come up with this thing if it's not what Jesus taught? And it's, it kind of seems problematic to us. I would say in the ancient world, it did not seem problematic. The idea that God required a payment made sense. That's how they treated each other. That's how they imagined God. And that's why they have sacrifices. And one of the reasons they have sacrifices. So it made sense then, even if it doesn't make as much sense to people today. So why did Christianity come to embrace this idea? I think it's for a very clear and important historical reason, which is Jesus taught his disciples that God would forgive sins. They, many of them, some of them, thought that he would be the one who would be the ruler of this future kingdom that he was preaching about. There's a kingdom coming, he said. He told his disciples that you'll all be rulers in this coming kingdom. You 12 will be seated on 12 thrones, ruling the tribes of Israel. They expected him to be at the top of the heap. He's going to be the king over all. Jesus will be the future king, the future Messiah. And this is what, as we've said in an earlier episode, this is why Romans crucified him. That's why Pontius Pilate crucified him, because he was claiming to be the future king of Israel when only Rome could rule Israel and appoint kings and such. So they crucified him for insurrection. So these two things are going together. He's teaching forgiveness. His disciples think that he's going to be the future king. But then what happens is he gets crucified. And they can't understand it because he's supposed to be the future king of this kingdom that's coming very soon, but they killed him. And so how's this supposed to work? And why would God allow it? God God chose Jesus. He's a special one. He's a son. He's the Son of God. He's the future Messiah. Why would God allow him to be killed? And so right after the crucifixion, I think, just like soon after, as soon as anybody came to think Jesus had been raised from the dead, in the New Testament, it's 3 days later. Maybe it's a little bit longer. I don't know how long it is. But whenever somebody thought Jesus was raised from the dead, they realized, wait, he really is the chosen one of God. But if he is the chosen one of God, why in the world did he get crucified? It must have been part of God's plan. How could it be part of God's plan? And so they have to think, why would God want his chosen one killed? It must be a sacrifice. He must have had to die. Well, he didn't die for his own sins. He was sinless. He must have died for the sins of others. And so this is everywhere in the culture that God requires a sacrifice. And they just thought, okay, that's it. He's a sacrifice. And once they thought he was a sacrifice, then they, of course, they thought he's an atonement for sins. He was a sacrifice for the sins of others, not for himself. That became the message right off the bat. And it's different from Jesus' message. Jesus' message is that God will forgive your sins. And now the message is that Christ had to die for your sins, so that the religion about Jesus that developed was very different from the religion of Jesus. It's a religion based on atonement.
Okay. So I respect a lot of what Dr. Ehrman says there, and I agree with him that the religion about Jesus is often quite different from what Jesus himself preached. He is a historian, biblical scholar, and textual critic, so his goal is to try to get to the root of what Jesus actually said versus what people said he said. And that's what the work of scholars like Dr. Ehrman are doing. That's why he said that Jesus taught forgiveness. And when he said earlier in that video that Jesus taught that forgiveness came with repentance. So if you repent, forgiveness is there. There's no sacrifice. And the sacrificial, Elaine says that Dr. Ehrman is a hack. We will have to agree to disagree. Elaine, he is literally one of the best known critical biblical scholars on the planet. He does not affirm evangelicalism, etc. But the sacrificial system was all over the place in the ancient Near East, and within Jesus's Judaism, it was the religion of the temple and of sacrifice and atonement, etc. And so it would make sense. It would make logical sense for them to leap from one thing to the other. And again, I will agree to disagree with Elaine on this. Now, this is a theological understanding from a pastor named Mark Sandlin that I saw the other day, and I really appreciated it. So here we go.
Holy Week, which means that a lot of people are going to hear about how suffering is somehow redemptive. But what if that's not actually what the story is saying? And yeah, I know that might sound a little strange because we've been taught that the cross means suffering has a purpose, that pain is somehow part of the plan, that somehow violence leads to redemption. But let's slow down and really look at the story. Jesus wasn't killed because suffering is holy. Jesus was killed because systems of power couldn't tolerate love that challenged them. See, the cross isn't so much about God needing suffering. It's more like it's about humanity revealing what we tend to do when it threatens our power. You see, if we say suffering itself is redemptive, we ultimately are justifying the very violence that the story is exposing. And then we start telling people to endure harm instead of resisting it. We start calling pain purpose instead of naming it as something that needs to heal. That's not good theology. That's how harming keeps happening. The power of this week isn't that suffering saves us. It's that suffering doesn't win. That even when love is crushed by violence, it rises up. That even when systems try to silence it, it keeps showing up. So, no, suffering isn't redemptive, but what rises in the face of it, what refuses to let it have the last word, that is.
Uh-oh, you're muted, Dillon.
I muted myself. There was a truck going by and I muted myself. I was not going to be able to answer all of the questions that I got. I know that those are going to be unsatisfactory answers in some ways, because when we're deconstructing, one of the things that we have to deconstruct is that certainty that we were taught that this is just the way it is and this is the only way it is and all that kind of stuff. And it's just there's so much more that we can't know, and all theology is speculative. All of it is speculative. We're trying to make sense, just like the writers of the biblical text were trying to make sense of their world. I look at the Bible, and I am not a biblical scholar. I'm a theologian. That's a different they're different disciplines. But I rely on biblical scholars to help me come to theological conclusions about what the text means to us today. So I don't think that God ordained that Jesus had to suffer and die. I think that that Jesus made a choice to stand in love against the dominating powers of the day, and he chose to do it in a non-violent, non-retributive way because that's what his understanding of God was. When he said in Luke that the Spirit of the Lord is upon me, and he read from the scroll of Isaiah, he stopped before the part where the scroll of Isaiah says the vengeance and wrath of the Lord has come. He stopped before that. And I think that was a choice that he made to say who he is and how he was. And before I stop talking, the Bible, if you believe in the incarnation of Jesus as God, Jesus was nonviolent. So the atonement has to be nonviolent, or the death and resurrection of Jesus has to point towards nonviolence. It cannot be a violent, angry God and penal substitution atonement, which is what a lot of us grew up with. So hope that helps. And for people who have other questions, shoot us an email or a Facebook message or what have you, and we'll do the best we can with the knowledge and skills that we have.
Yeah, I also just as a comment, I also think another reason why so many of the conservative evangelical Christians and white nationalist Christians and such latch onto Trump so strongly is because they do believe in this wrathful, vengeful, punishing God.
Yep.
So it's easy. So this version, this Trump is attractive to them for this reason, because the version of God that they cling to is a God of punishment, a God of vengeance, a God of wrath, not a good loving father. You know what I'm saying?
Right. Mm-hmm.
It is this God that is waiting to see what are you doing wrong to send you to hell so that you could be burning, so there could be a weeping and gnashing of teeth type of God. And and so I think that, to me, that is one reason why they're so attracted to Trump, why they can tolerate and stomach him, because it's not far from the version of God they believe in.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
But do send us your questions. I would love for us to get into a deep Bible study, with the line by line, precept upon precept, with the scripture. Me and Dillon, I love bringing in the videos. I love hearing other people's perspectives. But I would love to break it down between Dillon and I and what we know, and just show you what does the scripture say. So if you have something that you have a question about, biblical or not biblical, whatever the case is, life, death, and everywhere in between, shoot it. You post it, email, whatever, get in our inbox, whatever the case is, and let us know so we can address it here on the show. Now, before we go, we always have a word on the street, and I think this one is fitting because of all that we're witnessing between the war in Iran, between what's going on in Gaza, between what's going on in our own streets with ICE. And this is a statement that's attributed to Dr. Martin Luther King, and it says, power at its best is love implementing the demands of justice. And justice at its best is power correcting everything that stands against love. And Dr. Yes, it certainly will. Dr. Cornel West would say that justice is what love looks like in public. And I love that. Justice is what love looks like in public. I love that. And so, what does the Micah say? Do justice.
Walk humbly before God. And
do justice. Thank you to all those who listen faithfully, new, old, and everyone in between. Thank you, Claire. Phil said, I highly recommend reading the new book, The Culting of America. That sounds very interesting. Maybe we could get the author of it on the show. Speaking of authors, we got a lot of good interviews coming up that I am very excited about. Most of you know Matt DeStefano and Keith Giles by now. We're going to have them coming up soon. We're going to have Dr. Matthew, is it Taylor?
Taylor.
Yep. Coming up. I'm excited about that. There is a pastor out of
L. Dowd, Dr. Newly minted PhD L. Dowd, who's going to be talking about her book, Baptized in Tear Gas.
Baptized in Tear Gas, my goodness. The pastor Corey, his last name is slipping my mind, but of Lake Vinings Church in Georgia is going to be with us. I'm very, very, very excited about that. These are, there's a lot of folks that are doing, I call it religion done right, that are not jumping on the bandwagon of bullshit, that are not preaching fire, damnation, and hellfire and damnation, that are not telling people that they're worthless, raggedy worms before they tell you that God loves you, that are not trying to scare people to Jesus, which I believe is a fruitless exercise. I'd rather love you to the Lord than scare you to him. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
That's the example that Christ gave us, and so there's a lot of folks that are, for as many that are out here, sometimes it's hard to know and to understand that there's people that are here doing it the right way. There's actually some, yes, Claire, I call it the bandwagon of bullshit, for real. But it's hard to know that there's churches, good preachers, good pastors, good ministers out here, because the loudest ones be so wrong and so loud that but the ones that are actually doing the work, they're not interested in being loud about it. And there's some that are, and that's good for them. But most of the ones that are doing the work, they're just doing the work. They're doing ministry. They're serving the homeless. They're serving the widows. They're serving the orphans. They're serving the people that are in prison. They're doing the God work. They're about kingdom business. There are some good ones out there. So I do want to encourage you, those who may be in whatever stage of deconstruction, or maybe you walked away from the church entirely. I'm not telling you to go back. I'm just telling you that there are some good ones out there. If you do find any reason that you want to be searching, be encouraged in your search. And if you don't, that's okay too, because as far as I'm concerned, God is everywhere you are, because we're made in his image, her image, the image, their image, whatever you want to aspire to. Okay. So anyways, Dillon, do you have anything else for us tonight?
Well, it's Maundy Thursday, and I was reminded today that on Maundy Thursday, apparently John 13:34 and 35 is often quoted. So I'll leave you with that quote. Little children, I am only with you a little while longer. Look for me, and as I said to the Jews, so now I say to you, where I'm going, you cannot come. I give you a new commandment, that you love one another. Just as I have loved you, you should also love one another. By this love, everyone will know that you are my disciples if you have love for one another. And
Amen.
that is the core teaching of Jesus is love, y'all. We can argue theology all day long, but if it ain't centered in love,
It's
what's
just
the
clanging
point?
cymbals.
Yeah, it's a clanging symbol. And Paul got that part right.
That's right.
That's our show, folks. Thank you so much for tuning in. Like, subscribe, and share the show. We need more people to hear our voices and to spread the love and to jump off the bandwagon of bullshit and to disentangle themselves from the fundamentalist fuckwittery. And that's what we're trying to do around here. So thank you for listening, tuning in, and we'll catch you next week.
All right. Good night.